So these are the ingredients that we're going to need for the banana bread. Starting off, we need some mashed bananas, as well as 6 eggs. In this bowl we have some baking soda, baking powder, some salt, as well as cinnamon. And for the sweetener, I've chosen to use honey. You can use whatever sweetener that you would prefer. We also need some melted butter, and this is the almond flour that I'm going to be using. And we also need some vanilla extract. So to start off, we're going to take our mashed bananas and we're going to use a rubber spatula to transfer it into a large mixing bowl. And then to this mixture, we're going to add in our 6 cracked eggs. We're also going to add in our sweetener of choice. In this case, I'm using honey, but feel free to add in, again, whatever sweetener works for you. You can use maple syrup, you can use regular sugar, but again, I've used honey here. We're also going to add in vanilla extract. This should be about 2 teaspoons worth. We're also going to add in our melted butter. Here I'm using a rubber spatula to make sure that I get all of the butter out. And finally, we're going to add in our powder. So this would be our baking soda, our baking powder, our pinch of salt that I forgot to add into the bowl, but a pinch of salt, as well as some warming spices. In this case, I'm using a little bit of cinnamon powder. Feel free to use any other warming spices like nutmeg. Then I'm going to take a whisk and I'm going to mix everything together until it's a smooth consistency. And finally, to this wet mixture, we're going to add in our dry ingredient, which is our almond flour. You can do this in little batches, but here I'm just adding all of the flour in at once, and I'm using a rubber spatula to mix it thoroughly. You want to make sure that you mix everything well so that there is no dry flour that is remaining at the bottom, so make sure you scrape off the bottom of the bowl with your spatula. This is optional, but I'm choosing to add some chopped roasted walnuts. To do this, you can just roast some walnuts on the stovetop on a pan and let it cool down before you add it to the mixture. And once you do, make sure you mix thoroughly again. You don't have to use walnuts, you can also use any other nuts of your choice, or you can substitute it for some chocolate chips. Any topping that you prefer in your banana bread, you can use here. So besides the standard loaf, I'm also making 6 muffins with this mixture. Here I'm just lining up the muffin trays with the paper liners. You can choose to make it a loaf. You could also make muffins or even a cake. Here I'm just buttering the loaf pan. We're gonna put parchment paper on top of this as well, but the butter on the pan itself helps the parchment paper stick better. Here's the parchment paper that we're gonna add to our buttered loaf. The parchment paper is a little bit tricky to put in, but we don't need it to be perfect. It is a bit of trial and error, so take your time to put the parchment paper into the pan and make sure you cut away the excess parchment paper so that it doesn't burn in the oven. Now we're gonna portion the banana bread mixture into the muffin liners. Here I'm just using a small ladle, roughly about a 1/4 cup worth of mixture into each of the muffin liners. Again, this is a little bit of eyeballing, so make sure you add in how much you desire. Once I finish portioning out my muffins, I like to take the back of my ladle and just flatten the tops. If you feel like you need to add extra, you can do so and then just flatten the top like I did here. Then we're going to take the remainder of our banana bread mixture and we're going to pour it into our buttered and parchment paper lined bread pan. Once you've poured in all of the dough into the loaf pan, you can take a rubber spatula and just flatten the top and level everything out so that it all cooks evenly. This isn't really mandatory, but I also like to tap my loaf pan on the counter a few times and shake it around a little bit. This helps to level everything and make sure that there are no air bubbles. Finally, we're going to put our loaf pan and our muffin tray in a 350-degree oven for roughly 50 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean.